There's nothing quite like coming home after a long week at work, ready to enjoy a quiet Saturday evening, only to find your backyard transformed into what looked like a scene from a college frat movie. Music blasting, strangers stumbling through, the grass, red plastic cups littering the ground, and at the center of it all was none other than Karen, my neighbor who never failed to amaze me with her outrageous entitlement. The problem? This wasn't her backyard, it was mine. And she had the audacity to tell everyone at the party that I had donated the land for her event. What unfolded after that night turned into one of the most unbelievable, chaotic, and infuriating battles of property rights I have ever experienced. And believe me, it ended with consequences Karen never imagined. It all started one warm summer weekend. I'd spent the day running errands and returned home around 7 p.m. As I pulled into my driveway. I noticed something unusual. Cars a lot. Of cars, vehicles lined both sides of the street, some even partially blocking my driveway. Confused, I parked carefully and stepped out, already frowning. The sound of loud music thumped through the neighborhood. It wasn't the occasional barbecue noise you might expect from suburban neighbors. It was club-level bass, rattling the windows of nearby houses. As I walked toward my backyard gate, I realized the sound was coming from behind my house. I froze for a moment, wondering if I was hearing things. But when I opened the gate to my backyard, I was stunned into disbelief. There, on my carefully maintained lawn, was a crowd of more than 80 people dancing, drinking, shouting, laughing, and carrying on like they were at a concert venue. Folding tables were set up with food and alcohol, streamers hung from my fence, and even a rented DJ booth was blasting music from giant speakers. And standing proudly in the middle of it all, waving around like she owned the place, was Karen. Karen, I shouted, storming across the grass. She turned, already flushed from alcohol, and gave me this smug little smile. "Oh, hey, neighbor. Glad you could make it. Grab a drink and enjoy yourself." I was absolutely floored. "What are you doing?" "In my yard." She laughed, as if I'd just told a joke. "Relax. It's just for tonight. I told everyone you were kind enough to donate your backyard for my birthday party." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Donate? As if my property was some community park? No, I never said you could use my yard. "Everyone needs to leave now," I shouted, trying to get the attention of the DJ, who ignored me and turned the music up even louder. Karen rolled her eyes. "Don't be such a killjoy. The neighborhood deserves some fun. Besides, you've got so much space you don't even use it. It's selfish not to share." My blood boiled. "This is trespassing. If everyone doesn't leave immediately, I'm calling the police." Her expression turned icy. "If you call the cops, you'll just embarrass yourself. Everyone here already thinks you gave permission. You wouldn't want to ruin your reputation, would you?" That was the moment I knew. Karen wasn't just delusional. She was dangerous in her entitlement. I pulled out my phone right there and called the police. Unsurprisingly, Karen tried to snatch the phone out of my hand, but I stepped back quickly and made the report. I told dispatch that over 80 people were trespassing on my property, that music was blasting at unsafe levels, that my neighbor had organized it without my consent. Within 15 minutes, the flashing redan blew. Lights appeared down the street. For a brief moment, I felt relief. Surely this nightmare was about to end. But of course, Karen wasn't going to make it that easy. When the officers stepped into the yard, she ran up to them, arms wide like they were old friends. "Officers, so glad you could make it." "Everything's fine, we're just celebrating." My neighbor generously donated his backyard for my party. The officers looked at me for confirmation. My jaw nearly hit the ground. "She's lying. I never gave permission. It's my property, and I want everyone gone immediately." Karen's face twisted with faux innocence. "Oh, come on, you. Did too, remember? You said? It's just grass." Go ahead, everyone here heard about it. A few of her drunk friends actually nodded and muttered things like, "Yeah, he said it was fine." My frustration was boiling over, but luckily the police weren't buying it, ma'am. One officer said firmly to Karen, "If he's the property owner and he wants everyone gone, then everyone needs to leave." Karen's smile faltered, but she quickly tried again. But I already paid for the DJ and the catering. This isn't fair." The officer's voice grew sterner. You'll need to relocate to your own property immediately, or you'll be charged with trespassing and disturbing the peace." That's when Karen lost it. She stomped her foot like a child and shrieked, "This is my neighborhood too. Doesn't even use this yard? It's practically community property. You can't just kick us out." I couldn't believe the audacity. "Karen, this is private property. You don't own a single blade of grass here." The police began ushering people toward the gate, but the crowd of drunk partygoers was reluctant. Some even booed me, shouting things like, "Why are you being such a jerk?" or "Lighten up, man." One officer finally had to cut the music to get the DJ out of there. That was when the partygoers began to scatter, grumbling about their ruined evening. Cups, plates, food, and trash were left strewn across every inch of my yard. Karen, however, refused to leave quietly. She started screaming about suing me for emotional distress and party expenses. At one point, she even claimed I had verbally agreed to let her use the space weeks ago. The officers had heard enough. They warned her that if she didn't go home immediately, she'd be arrested. That finally got her to storm off toward her house, though not without shouting, "This isn't over." When the last of the crowd disappeared and the flashing lights faded, I stood in the middle of my yard, surveying the damage. My lawn looked like a landfill, beer bottles, pizza boxes, discarded shoes, even cigarette butts crushed into the grass. My garden beds were trampled, my fence had been chipped, and I found burn marks where someone had lit sparklers. The police gave me a case number and encouraged me to document everything for potential charges. I took dozens of photos that night, furious beyond words. The next morning, I decided to confront Karen directly. I knocked on her door, holding a printed estimate from a local landscaper for the damages, nearly $3,500 worth of cleanup and repair. When she opened the door, she had the audacity to smirk. "If you're here to apologize for ruining my party, you can save it." My jaw tightened. "I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to tell you that you're paying for the damages to my property. Here's the bill." She snatched the paper, glanced at it, and laughed. "You've got to be kidding me. I'm not paying a dime. No. You should be thanking me your boring yard finally saw some life." That was it. I told her point blank that I was taking her to small claims court. The process wasn't easy. Karen, of course, tried everything to wriggle out of responsibility. She claimed the party was misunderstood, that the guests were respectful, and that I had actually encouraged her to use the yard. But the evidence was overwhelming. Between the police report, my photos, and even a few neighbors willing to testify about her lies, no, the judge didn't buy a word of her story. When Karen tried to argue that my yard was community property because it wasn't fenced off properly, the judge raised an eyebrow and said, "That's not how property ownership works." In the end, Karen was ordered to pay for the damages, plus additional fines for trespassing and noise violations. She left the courtroom red-faced and fuming, hissing that I had ruined her life. You'd think that would have been the end of it. But Karen being Karen, she couldn't resist one last act of revenge. A week later, I found flyers taped around the neighborhood accusing me of being a selfish neighbor who hated fun and tried to destroy community spirit. She even tried to organize another party, this time on her tiny patio. But after her fiasco with the police and the court, no one showed up. Her reputation was in shambles, and most of the neighbors avoided her altogether. As for me, I ended up installing security cameras, reinforcing my fences, and making sure my property lines were crystal clear. Karen never dared step foot on my lawn again. The lesson that night taught me a hard lesson about boundaries. Some people will twist reality, manipulate others, and act with shocking entitlement if you let them. Karen thought she could rewrite the rules of ownership and turn my backyard into her personal nightclub. But in the end, the land common sense prevailed. And now, every time I step into my backyard, I'm reminded of the night it became the scene of the wildest, most outrageous party I never agreed to host. Asterisk, this story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.